Hello, this is Garrett Keane, and we're going to continue with this exercise here in which we're going to try and make our first attempt at generating a mesh for the Shannon estuary. What we need to do that is we have the petimetry is shown here. We don't need that, so we can just switch it off. We only need these line files. For X boundary 3 F23 is the outer boundary, and then we have our 3 islands over here. What we need to do to generate this mesh is come File, New, and we're going to use one of these objects, a T3 mesh generator. When I click on that, we get this dialog box, and the only one we need to change for the moment is this one, and we'll set this value to 750. I'll explain that in a minute when we see the mesh. I say OK, and before we can generate the mesh, we just have to tell this object what the actual outline of the model domain is. So I take this file here and I drag it in as the outline. Once I have that there, I come to right click on this new T3 mesh, come to properties, and I just run. It comes up with a dialog box here telling me there's going to be approximately 3,000 nodes, a little more than 3,000 nodes. It generates the mesh very quickly in 1 second, and I say OK. And I then take this mesh in here, and you can see here that it's generated a fairly coarse mesh. Now there's one thing I forgot to do, is if you look at it here, you can see here that in certain places it doesn't define it misses out, it doesn't define the detail in here, and likewise here it's missing detail, but also it's actually generated the mesh over the islands, it's ignored the islands basically. You can see here once again it's a very coarse mesh and it doesn't really capture any detail in here. So what I'll do is, and you can see here as well here, once again there's very coarse detail in there, it doesn't capture that correctly, and I wouldn't model the flows through there correctly. So what I need to do is come back in here, I'm going to right click here on the new mesh and remove it. This time what I need to do is remember to include the islands. So I select these down, I take Kenue Island and I drag it down into this object as a hard line. I do the same with Kenue Island, and I do the same with Foynes Island. You can see they're listed there as hard lines. Now when I go to do the mesh and I run it, now it's saying we're going to have far more nodes here because of this detail here, and it's going to take it, still generated in 2 seconds. I say OK and have a look at this mesh, and you can see what it actually does. It's the same as before, it's approximately 750. When I say 750, sorry, I should explain that, is that normally Telemac will try and generate triangular elements, equilateral elements. And if you look at these ones, what it's saying here, it's approximately 750 meters from node to node. And it will try and create elements, equilateral elements, with sides of 750. Once again, as before, it's missing a lot of detail. But what it will do is when you create an island and make it a hard line, it makes the boundary fit these points in here. But you can see here it generates these spurious sort of elements, and they wouldn't function particularly well. Once again, it hasn't described this inlet here very well either. So what we'll do, you can see it's done that in 3 islands. Because he made them hard lines, it doesn't put, none of the elements will actually go across them. Now, what we can do instead of this one is we can come back, I can remove that one, and we can come back up again to properties. But this time, let's bring this all the way down. Let's go down to say 300. And we'll run it. And you can see here it's generating a lot of nodes. I don't think it's saying here our minimum edge length will be 20 meters, but let's run it and see what we get. It takes a bit longer obviously to create it because we have more elements. It's 4 seconds. Let's say OK, OK. And now we'll have a look at this one. You can see it's a much finer mesh, far more detail. Now you can see here that it captures the outer, the coast very well actually. And you can see in here, the problem with here is on this node here, that's a land point, that's a land point, that's a land point. So no flow can go across here, so you need more detail in there if you want to capture that inlet. But otherwise, once again, over here, you need more detail in there. But otherwise, the mesh everywhere else seems to be quite good. So I'll stop there and I'll move on to the next one. Okay.